My name is Joe Gould. I'm a senior technical specialist with Autodesk. And basically what that means is what I do from a day-to-day is I meet with customers like yourselves, understand their workflows, understand their business goals, and help marry technology to those business goals to make sure that, that you guys are as efficient as you possibly can be. In my former life, I was, or I guess I am, a recovering architect, so I have a degree in architecture. I've been practicing for about 25 years. So with that being said, I'm going to kind of jump right in. I have had the luxury of working for Autodesk for about 11 years, and my region really has varied greatly, from covering the entire U.S. to covering the eastern coast to covering North Carolina to Florida to New Mexico. And over the last 3 years, I have been involved in collaboration discussions. And to date, if I had to throw a resume at it, I probably have done well over 1,000 presentations simply around BIM 360, collaboration for Revit, and I love the way Harry put it, formerly known as collaboration for Revit. And if I had to take all of the ways that customers were collaborating and sharing data and put it into 4 buckets, what you're seeing on the screen would probably encompass most of those solutions. So as I look through here, you know, there's a variety of buckets, a variety of tools that our customers are using, that you guys are using, from FTP SharePoint sites to standard network drives coupled with Revit server or third-party applications, to basic cloud storage. And if I threw out, you know, words like Dropbox or SharePoint or OneDrive, there's a lot of that out there in the field. And then customized point cloud solutions, so people would actually literally go and build their own solutions to utilize Revit so that they could collaborate models back and forth, either with satellite offices or with external consultants. Now, the challenge with these is, although some of these are very good with moving data back and forth, they're really not, as the title suggests, not really built for design data. And what I mean by that is, as markups need to arise, as issues arise in the design development, as we need access to live changes in the models, these are fantastic for sharing data, but not necessarily collaborating on a design environment. And this slide I really like, because if I were to talk to you guys about collaboration, and specifically collaboration for Revit, a year ago, the conversation would have been, it is a common data platform or a single repository or single source of truth, or whichever word I used at the time, for our design data. And I wouldn't be lying to you guys. So if I look at the 2 personas, designer and engineer, obviously we're going to work hand in hand from concept design all the way through construction documentation and maybe even into CA. But the challenge became, and really BIM 360 team and collaboration for Revit did house the Revit models, did allow us to have a conversation around the project and things like that. But the challenge becomes that little transmittal piece that you see there, that dashed line, represents at some point a transmission of data. And as you guys are well aware, anytime that I have to transmit data, it's very inefficient. It could be a loss of data, it could be a poor translation, and really in our business, time is money. So again, even if I was talking of collaboration for Revit, as the designers and engineers are working hand in hand to knock out the construction documentation, at some point we literally needed to transmit that data from BIM 360 team up to BIM 360 for the contractor to take possession of the project and finish it all the way through facilities and operations. So even a year ago, we still would have had this transmittal process. Well, the desired outcome, as you can see in the green line, represents a single fluid, collaboration or transmittal of data throughout the entire project lifecycle, regardless of what persona. And we realized that, the transmittal process, even in BIM 360 team and collaboration for Revit, wasn't ideal. So what we've done was, as of April this year, we're now all encompassing it under the umbrella of BIM 360. So I think this is a great graphic that indicates that now BIM 360 is not necessarily called, we used to call it A360, then we'd call it A360 team, which became BIM 360 team. So we love to confuse you guys with the naming convention from an Autodesk standpoint, but now hopefully we've simplified that in saying, hey, all your data for the project lifecycle is going to live inside BIM 360. And regardless of persona, what I mean by that is a designer, an engineer, a contractor, an owner, regardless of that persona, we need one location where all that data resides so that based on your persona, you can pull data out of the project to do the job that you need. What we're looking at project data and a solution at it, we would call it BIM 360 document management. So about a year ago, when I was doing collaboration for Revit presentations and we were talking about team, I would always caution my customers to start looking at BIM 360 docs. Why? Because I knew it was going to be the spine moving forward. So literally, that project data lives inside of BIM 360 in a module called BIM 360 Document Management. And I'll briefly touch on that. It houses both 2D as well as the 3D models, okay? Now, because that data lives in one repository, we can now have designers co-authoring models. We can have folks in the pre-con doing clash detection off those very same models. We can then take those models and put them out in the field to do quality and safety checklisting and templates and RFIs and submittals. Again, all in the same location. And then finally, the ultimate end goal is for the owner to have that data in a utopia and then basically take all the data, capture all the as-built data, all the information that came out of the as-built data into a facilities management model. And we can do that now because we do literally have all that data residing in that project data layer. Now, because of this, because it resides in one location, we can now pull analytics and insight like we never could before. I'm actually going to show you a little bit of the insight dashboard. And then finally, what we wanted to do is we weren't naive enough to know that BIM 360 is going to solve everybody's issues, right? So what we've done is we've built it on the concept of an open web API. So literally that means that you guys or Microsol resources or some developers can come in and custom write code for you guys to do things that BIM 360 may not necessarily do out of the box. So maybe a SharePoint integration or something inside of BIM 360 that you really needed to do. That's what your firm specializes in. Because that open web API, think of it as like an AutoCAD Lisp routine. We're literally writing Lisp routines to make AutoCAD do things it wouldn't necessarily do out of the box. And that's exactly what we're doing here. Now, if I fast forward and start throwing some naming conventions or some solutions at the BIM 360 portfolio, what we're looking at here is 4 different stacks, and really we've simplified it greatly. So I mentioned just a few minutes ago that BIM 360 document management is the spine of all things BIM 360. And basically, here's what it is. So it allows a user to upload or sync to Central all the project data, including the models, so that as we progress up the stack to the right, different personas can take advantage of that data. So we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about, or all the time actually, talking about BIM 360 design collaboration. So at its core, what is it? It allows us, like Harry said, it's formerly known as Collaboration for Revit, but it allows users to co-author Revit models regardless of location and regardless of discipline. Okay, so I'll actually show that one live. As we progress up the stack, we have BIM 360 Glue. So the idea behind BIM 360 Glue is model coordination. So rather than have one person literally controlling all the models and aggregating the models, different disciplines, different consultants can upload their models into a single repository, okay, again, BIM 360 document management, and we can do things like clash detection without ever leaving the user interface of BIM 360. And then finally, for anyone that's doing construction out there in the audience right now or construction administration, we have the build offering, which basically it said it's geared towards construction execution workflows, but also construction administration from an architecture design standpoint. And what this allows us to do is literally create RFIs, create submittal packages, issue management, be out in the field literally and take control of punch listing or anything like that. And literally these stacks just kind of stack on top of each other. So those are all the platforms and packages that are part of BIM 360. Now, I'm not going to go through each one of these slides because I definitely want to leave some time for Q&A. But from a doc standpoint, I'll show you this, but it is the spine for all things to come from 2D, 3D, versioning control, we'll talk about that, document control. Here's where we're going to spend a lot of time understanding as we're co-authoring this Revit model, where does it go? How do we get it up there? Is it a download process? Am I going to need internet connection? What happens when that goes down? How do I find out, who's created what package and what's changed? We're going to talk about all those things. We're actually going to show you all those things. And then we're not going to talk about Glue too much, but again, that's Premiere built for Clash. And of course, Build obviously is built for daily reporting, issue management, RFIs, and such. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and jump into BIM 360. And I'm going to slow down just for a second here because I want to make sure that sometimes I talk faster than the computer can react, especially on a GoToMeeting. So hopefully everyone can see my screen currently. And right now, what I've done is I've simply opened up, by the way, I'm in Google Chrome, so I highly recommend Google Chrome or Firefox. I am in Google Chrome on the desktop version. There is an iPad and Android application called BIM 360 app. And as long as you guys have it, is free, and as long as you guys have an entitlement to BIM 360, you guys can take advantage of leveraging some of this data on an iPhone or an Android phone or a tablet. But right now, for this presentation, we're going to strictly stay into the desktop cloud version. So let's take a look at what we're looking at here first and foremost, just so you guys get a good feel of this. Autodesk BIM 360, and then we have this thing called ADSK Construction. Well, what the heck is that? ADSK Construction at its core is my firm's central repository that lives in the cloud. So what that means is it is your cloud, your personal cloud, or I should say your organization's cloud that lives inside of Autodesk's cloud. And inside your cloud, you're going to have access to all the projects that your firm has created or all the projects that a consultant has invited you to that you have permissions to view. So if I were to simply expand this little arrow next to connected project delivery, and I were to scroll down, you can see that I have a bunch of different projects, as well as a bunch of different accounts here. Now, I'm not going to change accounts, but the only reason that I have different accounts, honestly, is because I've been invited by consultants to go into their accounts just to make sure everything's working properly. You may only have one account, and that's perfectly fine. Now, one of the things that, I realize as a recovering architect is there have been a lot of times where I might have been on a project and a phone rings or an email comes through and I need to toggle between different projects while I'm on the fly. It's very easy to do so. I won't for this presentation, but you can see I'm in Connected Project Delivery 2018. At any point in time, I can simply select another project and the interface will change to show that particular project. Now, one of the great things that we have here is unlimited storage, unlimited data. So we are not like Verizon at all. We are not going to charge for data. We are also not like others where we're going to start charging you guys for sheets after a certain amount. So literally when I say unlimited, it is unlimited. I have a lot of customers that come on here and house point cloud data because point cloud data files are really large. Now, for BIM 360 design, we're not going to really incorporate point cloud data. However, I just want you to know that literally it is unlimited data. Now we are in a module called Document Management, and if I click this kind of waffle icon or 9 button, whichever you want to call it, and I expand it, you can see that I have access in Connected Project Delivery to Project Home, Insight, Document Management, which again is that spine where all the data lives. I have Project Management, I have Cost Management in Beta, I have Design Collaboration, which we're going to spend time in, I have Model Coordination or Glue, I have Field Management, which is the other part of Build, Project Admin, and Account Admin. Now, depending on your level of your level in the project, whether you're a team member or you're a project admin or you're an account admin, you may or may not see all of these icons. In fact, you probably won't. You'll probably see the icons or the modules that you have been entitled to, and this can change on a per project basis. So what does that mean? Well, that means on this particular model, on this particular project, Connected Project Delivery 2018, I'm working with consultants that have design collaboration. If I had a Connected Project Delivery 2019, I may not be using design collaboration. Hopefully you guys are, but I may not have field management or project management turned on. So I just wanted you guys to kind of get a feel of what the user interface looks like. And regardless of which one of these modules I go in, the user interface is always going to look the same. Okay, so definitely worth noting. You don't have to worry about a bunch of things changing or a whole new interface. It'll all look very similar. Now, along the left-hand side here, you can see that I have all these different file structures, okay? Now, I'm not gonna get into plans or anything like that. That would be a docs presentation or a document management presentation, which I'm happy to have at a later point in time. But just know that document management, again, I know I keep reiterating this, is the spine even for design collaboration. So if I look under project files, you can see that I have folders set up right now called architecture, interiors, mechanical, MEP, shared, structure. What those files represent, a file or my satellite offices inside of Reddit where to put their model in the cloud, okay? It really is that simple. And I'll show you very simply how to create these folder structures. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to go, normally I'd select this and I'd go to project administration, but just for time's sake, I already have that tab open. And I'm in the same project, Connected Delivery 2018. I'm in the project administration tab because I'm an administrator. The first thing I want to do is I want to come to the design collaboration tab because I've got to set up, because normally what people want to do is they want to go inside Revit and they want to share their file out to all the consultants. I highly recommend, as a best practice, you start here first if you're a project administrator. And basically what that looks like is I am going to add a team. So think of the team without getting super confusing. I'm sorry, I got to chat really quick right here. Just want to make sure that it's nothing. Okay. Okay, so just on my side, what a team represents is it is just a series or a folder that you are going to give permission for folks inside Revit to share your model with. So for example, if I wanted to call this one Architecture 2, and by the way, what I really recommend is, because when you're working with docs and you're working in a construction environment and an architecture environment all in one location, what you probably want to do is make a naming convention that makes sense. So I always call this one collaboration and then a dash and then say architecture, and we'll just leave it at that, okay? So collaboration MEP, collaboration structure, collaboration interiors, I could go on. And I'm simply going to go ahead and add that folder, okay? And that really is all I'm going to do. So what it's going to do automatically, it's going to set up all the folder structures for me. So I don't have to worry about pathing or anything crazy like that. I literally don't have to have an IT background. I've created collaboration architecture and I'm going to close. And if I look at it, there it is, collaboration architecture, files, collaboration. Now, if I go back to document management, remember everything's housed in this site right here. You guys can probably see that, hey, there's no collaboration for architecture folder, and you said if you created it that it would be there. I just simply have to refresh. And once I refresh that, then I will already have a folder structure now called collaboration-architecture, and it'll basically be a file structure now for the folks inside Revit. And there it is. And if I expand it, there literally is nothing but a consume folder in there. We'll talk about that in just a few minutes, but there's no Revit file whatsoever. Now I'm going to come back here because at the same time I created collaboration, all I've simply done is I've created a folder. I haven't invited anyone to it yet at all. So the way that I do that is I simply select collaboration and I manage the team members. Now the great thing about this is if I wanted to invite Harry, for example, to this particular folder structure so that Harry could upload his Revit model and we could start the collaboration process, I can type in Harry's email address, okay? Or if Harry was an architect, I could say, okay, instead of Harry, I want every architect on this particular project to be able to post to the collaboration architecture folder. I could do it either individual name or email. I could do it by a role, or if I wanted everybody at Microsol Resources to be able to view everything in the architecture folder, I could do it by company. So I know I have a few over here, so if I want to type in myself, for example, I'm not really sure it's going to pick me up because I'm pretty sure I'm already in here a few times. But if I want to say project engineer, I could do that. Now what would happen is if I hit add, the project engineer and anybody with this role will have access to this folder in this permission level. By default, it's view and edit. But I want to expand this because this is really super important. And the reason that it's super important is because you may not necessarily want your MEP engineer in your architecture folder with full access to your architectural model. So what you'll want to do is you'll want to kind of think through this or have a technology plan. And once you get it set up, it's really very easy. For example, I don't want the project engineer to download my model or to edit my model in any way, shape, or form. So I'm only going to give him or her view-only status, meaning when the project engineer or anybody with that role logs into BIM 360, they will see the collaboration architecture folder. They can open it up. They can see my architecture RVT, but they will only be able to view it only inside of BIM 360. They will not be able to edit it whatsoever. So we could do this another way. I won't get into it, but it's very easy to start setting these permissions ahead of time and simply adding these folks to the project. And once you have it set up, you really don't need to babysit it at all any longer. It's set up, it's good to go. The only reason you'd have to come back here is if you start adding people or removing people from the project. But typically it kind of babysits itself. And once I'm done, I hit close. Now I am literally, so this one-time setup may take you 5 or 10 minutes, literally setting up all the folders. And once they're done, they're done. So I can literally now close out of or get out of the project administration because I have everything set up. So now what I could do is, now that I have the collaboration for architecture folder, I literally could go into Revit at this particular point in time. And I'm not going to do this, but I could literally go into Revit right now. And I could, actually we will do this, just so we do this on the fly. And so you guys see that there's nothing hidden behind here. I'm just gonna open up a new architectural template right out of Revit. And by the way, I'm in Revit 2018.3, just so that you guys know. BIM 360 design will only work in Revit 2018.3 or greater, okay? Anything previous to that will be collaboration for Revit. And earlier I had mentioned that there was BIM 360 team, and then there is BIM 360 document management. And these are the two central repositories that were housing the data in the cloud. So Revit 2018.3, just for your reference, was a transitional release of Revit that allowed existing users of collaboration for Revit and BIM 360 team to continue using Revit, and then also give them the choice to point to the new BIM 360 document management. In Revit 2019, you'll only be able to sync to Central into BIM 360 document management, okay? So if I were to go in here right off the bat and, we'll just go ahead and we'll create, I don't know, we'll create a wall or something like this. I'll put 25 years of architectural work to practice for you guys. And this is what I want to share right now. The way I'm going to get this out is I'm now going to come to my Collaborate tab. And underneath Collaborate, you can see that I have this Collaborate tool. Well, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select it. And the first thing it's going to do is it's going to say, do you want to save the model and continue? Now, this is very important. You have to save the model and continue. Why? Because the way that BIM 360 design works is it creates a local cache on each user's machine, and it also syncs a copy of this to the cloud. And without getting too geeky, if I did that, or I kicked off this project today on a Monday, and I'm the same user and I opened up Revit on a Tuesday when I came in, what's going to happen behind the scenes is Revit's going to use Revit Cloud Work Sharing to compare what's on your local cache to what's up in the cloud, and it's only going to pull down or push up the delta changes that have been saved since anyone synced that model to Central last. So what does that mean? At the first time you kick off collaboration, BIM 360 design, what's going to happen is if you have a 100 megabyte file, it's going to push all 100 megs up to the cloud. So depending on complexity of your model and bandwidth, that's going to be the longest. On that Tuesday when you open it up, it may only push 10 megabytes down because since you synced to Central last, maybe only a wall has changed. And this is a huge ROI for people because what we're seeing literally is we are seeing decreases of sync to Central time on the average of about 40%. And while that may not seem like a whole lot, 40%, if it takes you 5 minutes to sync to Central and you're saving, let's just say 2.5 minutes, and you sync 4 times a day, that's 10 minutes a day, that's 50 minutes. That's an hour's worth of time you're saving every single week. And if there's 10 projects, 10 designers, that's 10 hours you guys are saving. So the solution pays for itself very, very quickly. Now this is the dialog box once I kick it off that says, hey, do you want to use team? In our case, no. We want to use document management. Okay, so again, very easy. We're not going to do it in our network. We're going to go in the cloud here. And the dialog box simplicity is very easy. And again, you're not going to do this every time. You're only going to do this when you first kick off the project. It's going to say, well, what repository do you want to go to, or what hub? And then let's go ahead and find the project. We were in Connected Project Delivery 2018. We were in Project Files, and then there's the folder we just created. So I'm going to go ahead and initiate collaboration. BIM 360 design. Now, by default, what happens is it starts work sharing and creates default work sets. If there are no work sets, everything's going to be placed on work set 1. So you guys who are currently using Revit, you want to make sure that you don't keep everything on work set 1. That is super important, because if for any reason you're working on BIM 360 design and the internet went down, if you have an existing work set checked out, you can simply hit the save button and continue to work while the internet's down. This will alleviate anybody else from checking out that work set. Internet's back on, you could literally go to central all the changes you've been made. So you want to make sure that the work sets and work sharing are all set up properly. It already uploaded the model to the cloud, and it saved my model to local cache. You'll get a dialog box like this when everything is good to go. So Project 1 RVT is now shared in the cloud. And to prove that, I can come back to BIM 360 right now, BIM 360 document management, because remember, that's where it's housing all this stuff. And you can see right now that Project 1 RVT is currently being uploaded. The great thing about that is it's being uploaded with the background services, so a user can continue to work here inside of Revit if they needed to. Okay, and then once this is completed, this will change to a thumbnail preview, and it happened that quickly, I guess. And then a user could literally go in right now, currently, and open this. Now it's going to be wildly underwhelming because there's not a whole lot here, but you can see that I already have that rectangle up there. Now what's great about this, and we're going to get into this in more depth in just a few minutes, what's fantastic about using a large model viewer inside of BIM 360 is not necessarily, it's fantastic for collaboration, but it's also fantastic for non-Revit users. I can be a non-Revit user, never picked up a Revit a day in my life, and still navigate this model even on an iPad. And what's fantastic about that is it also has all the metadata and properties that came out of Revit. So if I'm an owner, or I'm a CM, or a principal, or I'm somebody that doesn't use Revit on a day-to-day basis, I can still leverage all that information. Hey, I want to know what the area is of this particular wall. Oh, and obviously I've got it set to square meters. That's an easy setting to change, but it's 224.8 square meters. Okay, so I can take dimensions off here. I can do markups. I can do sectioning, and we'll get into that in just a few minutes. But I just wanted to show you guys how quick that happens. Okay, now obviously as the design progresses, so as we add another wall in here, for example, and we'll go ahead and do that, the user wants to sync to central. Okay, and again, it's going to be very fast, because really the only thing I'm doing is I'm adding a wall to this. Now what you're going to expect to see right off the bat is me go back in here and this update, but that's not going to happen. And the reason that it's not going to happen is because there are two ways to share data inside of BIM 360 design. There is called live linking, and then there is called a kind of a low trust environment. So it's high trust and low trust. Those are your two options. In a high trust environment, which is what we're in right now, by the way, I just created a wall here. And let's say Harry's my structural engineer, and I need Harry to know that, hey, Harry, right here is a bearing wall. I need some kind of footing under here. I need all kinds of rebar and things like that. What Harry's going to do is he is going to link or insert, he's going to link to my Revit file initially. And when I sync to central last, what Harry's going to do is then he's going to come into manage links, and he's going to reload latest. Now, Harry, as a Revit authorer inside this project, will immediately see that wall. But if we go back to BIM 360, you're not going to see that wall. Why is that? Well, remember, this is an owner-facing hub, okay? So we want you guys to have control over what's being shown inside here. So there's two ways to get that data up. There's syncing to central, which we just did, and out came the rectangle. And there's also something called publishing. Now, publishing is a snapshot in time of your model that you want to get out to everybody else so that they can review it inside BIM 360. At its core, it's that simple. So what happens when I want to get that new wall up here? Instead of syncing to central now, What I want to do is I want to come to the Collaborate tab, and I want to go to Publish Settings. Now think of Publish Settings, the easiest way I can explain this, think of Publish Settings as a print dialog box. You're going to send something to your printer, it's more than one sheet, you want to create a set of sheets. And that's exactly the same thing here. So underneath this set, if I select it, I can look at every single view and sheet inside the model, and I can systematically come in here and check off which ones are ready for prime time. Because let's face it, if every time I made a change inside Revit and the owner was inside BIM 360, it would absolutely drive you guys as design professionals nuts, because even if you were doing study drawings, an owner would react, hopefully, would not react, but would react every single time a change was made, and that would just drive you crazy. So here is the way to control it. The way that I update that wall inside BIM 360 so the owner can see it is by creating this dialog box, hit save and close. And now when I want to get that new wall up there, and I'm not going to do this because it's going to publish in the background and over GoToMeeting, I just don't want to do that. It could cause some hiccups. I'm going to find the project that I was in, and I believe that was called Connected Project Delivery 2018. I'm going to select it, and I'm going to take a look at all my RVT models that are inside here. And what this is going to do is graphically, it's going to tell me that, hey, these are all the Revit files you have in here, okay? Here's the one that I just created 2 seconds ago called Project 1 RVT. And you can see that as I hover over some of these, in the middle almost, you'll see a green check mark. What a green check mark indicates is I've published the latest and greatest. So if an owner is looking at the MEP Q Revit, they're looking at the latest and greatest changes. However, if they're looking at Project 1, they're looking at something that's older, an older snapshot in time. The way that I can get the new wall up there is I simply hit Publish Latest. And then it publishes it behind the scenes. So now this particular snapshot in time, had I published it inside BIM 360, this would change to version 3, and the owner could now see 3 walls. It gets a little bit confusing because Harry and I, as we're inside Revit Cloud work sharing and we're authoring, we want access to that model live. We don't want snapshots in time. So as I make changes, sync to central, and Harry reloads the latest, he'll see everything, all the changes, because he needs to react to that. Whereas an owner inside BIM 360 needs to react to snapshots in time that you guys control, okay? So that's the high trust environment. Again, every time Harry makes a change in Revit, I reload the latest, I get those changes whether I want them or not. Now there is, and most of my customers actually like working that way. As changes are made, they can react inside Revit, but there are some, however, that want more control over what's being brought into their work in progress model inside Revit. And the way we would handle that is we would do that through BIM 360 design. So what do I mean by that? If I open up BIM 360 design, you can also see that there is a, and I went back into collaboration architecture, you can also see there's a consume folder. And inside the consume folder, if I were to open it up, there's nothing there. And what a consume folder is, and I'm going to go to the BIM 360 Design Collaboration tab for a second. What a consume folder is basically a package, and I'll explain what a package is. It's basically a package that one of the consultants have created that I have reviewed here inside the BIM 360 Design Collaboration model. I personally have reviewed it, I've approved it, and then I've consumed it, meaning I'm using their package they just created. So think of this as like a pause button. What do I mean by that? I'll use Harry and I as an example. Harry posts a structural change or a structural model. Harry comes in here, he creates a package. I, as an architect, come in here and you can see that here's all the different disciplines. I'll explain this in just a second. I look at that package and I say, yes, this is what I want. I hit the consume button, and then inside Revit, I reload the latest, and then I get access to the consumed one or the consume package. So packages basically give me an opportunity inside of BIM 360 to review these here first rather than react to changes here inside Revit, okay? And I'll show you what I mean in a second. So first, let me explain what we're looking at. I'm going to go ahead and close this. This, as soon as I open this up, I'm automatically dumped into my team space, which in my case is architecture. You can see I have some sets of drawings here. I have some sheets. I have 3D views. I have project models, okay? I also have this weird radio button here where I open the project timeline. And some people call these a swim lane, but basically what this is a timeline that shows every time either myself has created a package for distribution to the other teams, or other teams have created a package for distribution to me. The nodes that we're looking at here, if I hover over any single one of them, are actually packages that have been created, and they're color-coded in such a way that solid, basically when I'm on a consultant timeline, solid means I've reviewed it as an architect and I've consumed it, meaning yes, I approve these changes and I'm going to bring your changes into my Revit model. Some of these you'll notice are also, they're not solid. And what that means is basically a consultant has shared a package which I have not reviewed yet, okay? And then if we look at architecture, you can see some of these have, different colored, they're half and half, they have numbers. All that represents is on this particular day, I had distributed 3 different packages. Some of them have been consumed and some have not. So let's take a look at this. So if I'm an architect right off the bat on the timeline, I can see that the structural team had created a package that I reviewed and I said, yes, let's bring it into Revit, and that was on 5/14. They later on the same day shared another package and I haven't consumed it. And the reason that I haven't is because I haven't really explored it yet. And the way that I do that is I simply select on one of these packages and I explore it. And again, it brings up that same model viewer that we just had. Now, what's fantastic about this is, again, non-Revit users can play in the project sandbox here. But more importantly, if anything, they can't go in and edit any of my work in progress model, because let's face it, our stamps are on the line and things like that. We don't necessarily want people in our models. And this is the way that we keep them out. A user now from for an architecture standpoint can come in and review and same properties and everything, the structural model without ever touching the real work in progress model. So what can I do here? Well, I mean, there are a lot of different things. I can navigate, through orbit and pan. I can section, I can measure dimensions. So, if there's not a dimension and I need to know that that's 12'7", I can. Most importantly, arguably the most important thing is they released 2 structural packages. How do I know what's changed? They didn't give me a narration. So I can be proactive, and there's a show changes button up here. And what happens is it puts it in this virtual light table that basically says, hey, this is what's changed between these particular projects. These particular packages. Anything that's transparent has remained the same. Anything that's been changed is color-coded. And you can see along the left-hand side, very simple. Green is added, red is removed, and yellow is modified. If I don't want to see any one of these particular categories, I can simply turn them off and say, I don't care about what's modified, or I don't care about what's been removed. I probably do, I want to leave them on, but just know that you can kind of customize this content however you need to. You'll also notice that I have disciplines that are affected by these changes. If I don't want to see structural changes, for example, I can turn that off, or I can go ahead and turn off the architecture. So these are the disciplines that have been affected. You'll also see that I have a results list as well as a tree list. Now, at any point in time, I can select any one of these shapes from the tree over here, or from the list. But I'm kind of old-fashioned, and I like to zoom in here, and I like to say, hey, listen, I really need to know what's going on with these beams. I can self-select any one of those beams. Now, the great thing about it is when I select one of the beams, I get all the math behind it. So on 5/14, this particular beam had 18.2 cubic inch elastic modulus, and back on 5/7, it was 29. So something's changed drastically here. If I want to comb through all this math, I certainly can. One of the things that I love the most is being able to literally say, I'm on 5/14, let's go ahead and show me what it looked like on 5/7. And I'm going to zoom in here for a second, and I'm going to try to navigate this the best I can over GoTo. I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and I'm going to say, okay, here's what it looked like on 5/7, and here's what it looked like on 5/14. So on 5/7, the beam was actually shallower. Now, if I am MEP, or if I'm an architect and I've got storefront or something that's going up to this beam, then this is going to affect me in a pretty major way. So again, I didn't have to necessarily worry that somebody didn't put a narrative together. I was proactive, and I figured out what's changed between these models by letting the technology work for you. Okay, and now if this is something that I approve and I say, okay, well, these beams have to be what they are, I can simply come up and hit consume. And when I consume, what happens is back here, when I link Harry's model, Harry's structural model in here, I will be linking to the consumed folder. So instead of reacting to a live model, and every time somebody made a change, and quite frankly, if I was in a live environment, I might have missed this. Now I have the opportunity to look at it first before I bring it into Revit. The biggest question I get on here is, Joe, this is a really great feature. I love the graphics, but what happens when I want to track this out? You have the ability to also export this out into a CSV file, which you guys probably. And then what I would recommend is if you're going to keep it in Excel, that's particularly fine. Go ahead and upload it to BIM 360 in project files in a folder you created called change management, so that with a date, so that you have not only the graphics here, but you also have the math behind it. Okay. So being proactive here gives you that pause opportunity. If I go back to the architecture, one of the things I love, we'll kind of comb through, we'll comb through the models here. One of the things that I love is every time somebody shares a package, one of the great things about BIM 360 design is it allows you to aggregate all the models together. So I don't necessarily have to worry about creating a link file in Revit and uploading all these linked files and all that stuff. Again, I'm going to let the technology do the work for me. So because the structure has put up their model, because the MEP has put up their model, I can be in my architectural team environment here. And if I simply select teams, I can toggle on and off different disciplines and focus on what I need to focus on for that particular day. Again, great for non-Revit users to come in here and say, hey, I want to look at structural and MEP together, or, I just want to look at the structure, okay? Or even better yet, what I love about the software is it works the way we think it should work. Better yet, this is great when I want to focus on a whole model, but what happens when I want to look at different levels? Well, let me go ahead and just take a look at level 4 and select it, and it will basically slice this up without having to do section views and all that kind of stuff inside of Revit. We'll let the software kind of do some of the work for us. Now, what a great presentation tool to use, a first-person tool, and I'm kind of bad at this, guys, from a standpoint of navigating this, especially on a go-to, but what a great navigation tool to have this in a conference room. Again, can be a complete non-Revit user and literally start walking through the project with the customer or with the client without ever having to open Revit whatsoever. And then once we're done, it's very easy to kind of piece this back just by selecting the level again. It will essentially put it all back together again, okay? So I've thrown a lot of information out at you at once, and it might be a little bit inundating at first, but once you get the setup done properly, it really is very easy for a user to come in here and either select a high trust environment or a low trust environment.